you ready? Okay, thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. Today's class is dedicated to triangle pose, and the way that I am coming through these classes, right, the master part of the master class is in really understanding the mechanics of what goes into a pose and also the attitude that goes into a pose, right? Because yoga postures are not just designed for the physical opening, but they're designed to create an energetic effect as well. And if we're not focused on that, then we can align our joints the best we can, and we may or may not get the full actual experience of the pose. So triangle pose is tricky for a lot of people to do in the most correct alignment because it requires a lot of interesting rotation on your hips and a lot of interesting strength on your hips, which we don't always have. We usually have a lot of tight on our hips, which doesn't mean that we have rotation or strength. It kind of means that we're without either. So that's that solid stance of triangle, of the legs coming together up into that point, that gives the spine the opportunity to extend, right? If the legs are not steady, the spine can't extend. So we start with triangle with the rotation of your legs, right, in your hips and the strength of your outer hips. So just as you're seated now, if you're sitting cross-legged, I just want you to be aware, flex your feet. And the flexing of your feet, if you're sitting cross-legged, again, if you're not, that's okay. But if you're sitting cross-legged, flex your feet. And I want you to feel that you are actually pressing your seat down into the floor and then just lifting your knees a tiny bit. Yep, so flex your feet, lift your knees a tiny bit. Good, and keep your seat really rooted. Yeah, so you want to have that kind of energy in your outer hips when you're practicing triangle. There should be a real kind of solid feeling there. And then let that go. And let the eyes close for a moment. If you're just coming on, make sure that you have something near you that acts like a strap and something that acts like a block. Good. And again, the attitude of triangle, it's said in geometry to be one of those very stable postures because it's many kind of, the lines coming together actually share pressure, right, structurally. So that's what we're trying to create in triangle as well, is that there are multiple triangles being created in the body, but the stress of the pose, if you want to call it that, is distributed. So there's no one part of you that is bearing all of the weight. So eyes closed if you're not already. And just that concept, right? So draw your low rib cage in, set your seat down, and then pull up through your spine. So not through your shoulders, pull up through your spine. It's going to be the back of your ribs that pull up and pull back. And then it's going to be the back of your throat that pulls back and pushes up. And then the crown of your head. So it's like your arms are just hanging. Good. Because I want you to have that feeling of extending your spine from your spine. Nice. And then stretch the arms out wide, please. Eyes can remain closed. Just stretch the arms out wide. Good. Turn your palms to face forward. Yep. And then I want you to find where you are squeezing your shoulder blades. So squeeze your shoulder blades a lot. Yep. And then keep that feeling of squeeze. Draw your low rib cage in and then move your hands forward until there's no more feeling of pull on the front of your arms. Good. So your shoulder blades stay squeezing, but you move your hands forward until there's no more pull at the front of your armpit. Good. Then do that again. Squeeze a lot. Let the arms go all the way back. It's hyperextending, right? So this is pulling too far back through the arms. And then keep that squeeze and then start to push the hands towards each other like you're gathering heavy air, and bring the hands forward until you don't feel that feeling of stretch at the front of your armpits. Good. So this is again where you feel maybe a little bit more engagement through those lower armpits. That's what you want to feel, that pushing forward of the hands. Good, but the squeezing of the shoulder blades. Nice. And then release the hands down. Start to cat-cow your spine. Good. Seated cat-cow. No inhaling, lifting the heart. Exhaling, curling in. Good. Again, the actions of triangle is a lot of extension. And when we do a lot of extension, or where that's where our mind is how much can I pull out away from my center, is that we usually do it too much. And then we actually destabilize our joints. We actually destabilize our ability to hold the pose because we've pulled away so much. So the secret to extension is that muscle, those muscles that are drawing in as you are reaching out through the extremities. So it's going to be a lot of that lower armpit area, a little bit more of the upper back. The same thing's going to happen in the legs. Instead of that pulling the legs just apart, there's going to have to be that squeezing in. Good. And then bring yourself back to stillness, please. Hands come together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. Again, the attitude here is equal distribution of energy, equal distribution of weight. Maybe even a feeling that your spine is very, very strong, and everything that extends from your spine is not pulling that strength away, but actually is drawing it back in. We'll open with the sound of Om, deep breath. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands and come forward onto hands and knees. Now that all the dogs have arrived, we can really get to work. Hands and knees, please. So spread your fingers wide on hands and knees, and then round your back for a moment, just so again, you get into that decompression of your joints. So on hands and knees, round your back like a cat. Round, round, round. And as you round, again, you're pulling the hip points up off of the thighs. You're pulling your ribs up away from your armpits. Good. And then feel that as you are still rounded, you're drawing your shoulder blades towards each other on your back and lifting your collarbones up, but you're focusing on just lengthening forward, not dropping your ribs. Now pull the tops of your thighs back. Send the sit bones wide away from each other. Good. Push your inner thighs away from each other so your lower back extends, but you're not dropping your belly. Nice. Now maintain that, and you're going to lift your right leg up like you would for when we stack the hip and down dog. You're going to try and lift that right shin up off the floor, straight out to the sides. These are called fire hydrants, so you can imagine what that is. Knee stays bent. Lift the shin. Good. Try to keep your pelvis level with the floor. If you're not sure what that feels like, put a block on your lower back so that you know when you've lifted too high. So lift it up and then release it back down like you're back to hands and knees. No weight though. Lift that same leg up, open. Yep. Yep. And then bring it back down. Good. Use your breath. So as you inhale, you lift it up and wide. Yep. And then as you exhale, you drop it back down. You got it. Nice, you guys. Keep going. So this is to get you into where is the strength of my outer hip. So if you're shifting your weight a whole lot onto your left leg, I need you to try and keep it in the middle. If you're shifting your weight all onto your left hand, I need you to keep it equal between both hands. All right, so the navel is engaged. This is not easy, okay? So especially if you don't do these a lot, your outer hips are probably pretty mad. Good. But that outer hip muscle, that outer hip strength is what helps hold you steady in triangle. So if we don't have that here, it's not easy to create it just standing in the pose. Good. Next time you lift that leg, keep it there. Yep, lift it up and hold. Nice. And so you're pulling that thigh in towards your hip socket and then pull your knee towards your right armpit. So pull that knee in towards your armpit. Good. And then extend it straight back behind you, toes turned down. Good. And then bend it again, pull it up towards your armpit. The knee's going to rotate wide. The thigh's going to rotate wide. Pull it towards your armpit and then extend it all the way back. I know you're having so much fun already. And then again, pull it forward towards your armpit. Squeeze it in equal weight on your hands. Good. Press it back. Nice. Two more. Pull it forward towards the armpit. Good. Relax your jaw. Stretch it back. Last time. Pull that knee forward towards the armpit. Good. And extend it back. Beautiful. Come back to hands and knees. Circle your hips. I know. Don't give in to the, I just want to do a child's pose and then turn my camera off. Nice. Again, the purpose of this class is not just to do the pose over and over again so it feels familiar. It's to actually work the mechanics of the body that are going to make the pose more accessible. So those outer hips in triangle have to be able to be consciously engaged. So if you don't even know where those muscles are, it's not helpful for me to talk about them. Good. Come back to stillness, please. You're going to do the whole thing on the second side. So now the left knee is the one that's going to lift. So set your weight on your hands. Again, you can wiggle your shoulders around if you need, but get settled. And then you're lifting that left leg out to the side like a dog peeing on a fire hydrant. So you're lifting straight out. Try and keep your heel and your shin and your knee all in one straight line. Lift at the same height. Yep, there you go, Carolina. And then bring it back down like you're coming to hands and knees, but don't put your weight on it. And then lift it back up. Good. And bring it back down. And keep going, lifting it wide, watching that your weight is not falling all onto one hand. Good. Keep going with your breath. Inhale it up and exhale it, let it down. If you're twisting your whole pelvis open, you're going to really lose some of the activity on that outer hip. So keep your pelvis level with the floor as much as you can. Good. Keep going. Use your breath. Don't get tense. Good. If this is really, really hard, I recommend doing these every day or every couple of days for a while until it doesn't feel like it's so hard anymore. Good. But do them consciously, not just to get them out of the way. Good. Next time you lift, lift and hold. Yep. Good. And then pull that knee forward towards your armpit. So squeeze it forward and in. Nice. And then stretch it straight back behind you. Toes are going to face the floor. Good. And then pull it forward towards the armpit. The hip rotates out again. Pull it forward and then send it back. Good. Press into your hands, but keep your shoulders as relaxed as you can. Pull it forward towards the armpit, way wide. That's it. And then stretch it back. Nice. Pull it forward. You got two more. This is one. And then take it back. Really good. Nice job, Kristen. And then last time, bring it forward. Squeeze it as high as you can. Yes. Nice, Calliope. And then stretch it all the way back. Awesome. And then back to hands and knees. Circle your hips. Hand is moving the pelvis. Good. And then just briefly drop yourself back. Child's pose. Hips back towards your heels. Good. So a lot of that is also just to release when you do hip work, right? Hip strengthening things on hands and knees. I know it's a big tendency that the shoulders get super tense. So relax the upper back for a moment. Maybe take your arms a little wider. Good. And then bring yourself back up, please. And then come onto your backs. Bring your strap with you. So after all of that, your reward is you get to lay on your back for a little while. Good. Bring the right knee in towards your chest. Good. Strap around the foot. Left leg extends straight out on the floor. Yep. And then letting the shoulders stay relaxed on the floor. Give yourself as much room on the strap as you need so that your shoulders and your upper arms can stay present on the floor, connected to the floor. And then extend that heel up towards the ceiling, straight leg. Good. Top of your left thigh roots down, down, down. Nice. Good. So I want you to turn your toes out towards your shoulders. So let your toes turn out to the right. And let that bring the top of your thigh and your outer hip rotating down towards that extended foot. Good. So you're making more space on that right side just a little bit. And then try and keep your butt cheek in that orientation. Turn your toes back towards center. Good. So it's like the top of your thigh is pushing away, but you're drawing the heel straight up and in towards your belly. One more breath. Pull that thigh in. Good. And then turn the toes out again from the top of your hip. Turn the toes out, turn the leg out. Take the strap into both ends of the strap into your right hand. And you're going to let that right leg start to go wide, but you're keeping your left thigh rooted to the floor. Don't just let it drop out. Press that left thigh down. And the minute your left thigh starts to pop up off of the floor, that's where you pause. That's where you stay. Don't go to the lowest that your right leg can go and then try to adjust the left leg. I want you to really pay attention to the back of your pelvis. So as soon as that left thigh pops up or your left butt cheek starts to pop up, stay there. Good. And then you got to draw that low belly in, send your sacrum down to the floor, squeeze your feet towards each other. Yep. And then see if that can reroute that left butt cheek and that left side pelvis. Good. Nice, you guys. One more breath. Nice. And then bend that right knee. So it's like you're coming into half happy baby, but you've got the strap in your hand. Good. And as you come into that, so your knee should be wider than your ribs, right towards the armpit. That's it. So it's that same thing that you're rotating the top of the thigh out and down so that your butt cheek moves away. So the top of your thigh moves away from your torso. Good. And then so you're holding that strap in your right hand still. Push your foot into that strap. So give some pressure back. Good. But then scoop your belly, press your low back down into the floor, bend that knee again. So you're still bending the knee more than you're trying to push back against the strap, but I want there to be that little bit of resistance pressure. Good. And then straighten the leg back out all the way again, still at that angle. Good. And then scoop your belly, turn the toes back straight towards center, bring it all the way back up. Switch the strap into the other hand, please. Come into a nice straight-legged twist, so drop the leg over to your left. Nice. Good. Still using the strap to give a little bit of pressure. So you're drawing that heel at an angle. It's not just going straight over to the left, but it's actually going at an angle up towards your left shoulder. Good. And then can you push the top of your right butt cheek, your right hip down towards your extended leg? Nice. So this action, right, this stretch on the outer thigh is a big one for triangle going up into the pelvis. So if we can work that IT band, that outer hip, outer thigh here, then it's a little easier when you're doing it standing. It's not going to be something you're fighting with when you're upright. Good. Bend the knee all the way, please. Drop the knee down to the floor, still in the twist. Relax, let go of the strap. Just drop the knee all the way down to the floor in the twist. Good. Stretch your right arm up over your ear. Nice. And just breathe long from the armpit down to the hip. Yeah, so let it go all the way over Calliope until the knee finds the floor. As much as your shoulder comes up, doesn't matter. Just breathe that whole side body open. Good. So keep the arm up over your ear. It's going to be much more comfortable. Nice. And then bring it all the way back to center, please. Hug that knee in towards your chest, straight ahead. Good. And then switch sides. So take the right leg down to the floor, pull your left knee in towards your chest, again, strap around the foot. And then stretch that heel up towards the ceiling. Again, giving yourself enough room on the strap so that your shoulders can be completely relaxed, right? Because again, the integrity of the spine in triangle is we often go into an arch in triangle because one part of our spine or our hips is tight. So on the floor here with your legs split, similar to how it is in triangle, I want you to really focus on your ribs, back of your rib cage staying rooted to the floor, same way your sacrum is staying rooted to the floor. So ribs and pelvis should be in the same line, the same plane when you're practicing triangle. That's what we're looking for. Good. So turn your toes out towards the shoulder, please, just a little bit. So you feel the top of that thigh move away from your belly and then try and really draw it down towards that extended heel. So again, you're pulling the top of your thigh away from your belly. Good. And then turn your toes back towards the center, so back towards neutral while you're still doing that. So that hip doesn't roll in again. It stays more neutral. Good. Nice. And then both ends of the strap into your left hand, please. Turn the toes out again. This time fully turn the leg out. And then start to pay attention. Right thigh stays rooted. Right side sacrum stays rooted. So start to let your left leg go out to the left. But as soon as that right side starts to pop up, that's where you stop. And I want you to stay there and work at rooting that extended leg. Because if you don't get the connection here of how to stabilize that other leg, it's not going to be there for you when you're doing the standing. So do it here. It's not important how far out that left leg goes. Good. In this case, what we're looking for is the stability of that inner core, the inner belly and hip flexors and all of that to keep the lower spine stable while the legs are split and rotated. Good. Nice, you guys. And then bend the knee like you're in half happy baby. So you might have to bring it up a little bit. Some of you who went really wide. Good. But the knee should be wider than your ribs, wider than your armpits, still holding the strap. And then as you find that half happy baby, push up just a little bit through the ball of that foot into the strap. So your knee shouldn't unbend very much. It shouldn't straighten very much. You still want the knee mostly bent. Good, but that little bit of pressure, again, scoop your belly, push your butt cheek down towards the floor as you push your heel up. So you're creating, again, a little bit more sense of decompressing or taking the thigh out of the hip and at the same time drawing the pelvis lower into the floor. Good. Nice, you guys. And then start to straighten the leg again, still out at that angle. Beautiful. And then bring it all the way back up to center. Switch the strap into your right hand. Let the leg come all the way over into the straight-legged twist. Nice. And again, remembering you don't want it just in line with your hip. The idea is that as you get more and more stretch on that lower back through the outer hip and thigh, that those toes start to reach up towards the right shoulder. Good. And the top of your hip top of your pelvis on that left side is pulling down, away from your shoulder, towards the extended heel. Nice. Again, triangle has a lot of extension. And so there's lots of places where we can get stuck. We can get stuck in the extension of the leg, the outer hip and the outer thigh. We can get stuck in the extension of the trunk, what you might be feeling in this pose right now. We can get stuck in the extension of the arms through the shoulders. Lots and lots of places to get stuck. Good. Bend the knee, please. Let it drop all the way to the floor in the twist. Good. If your shoulder flies up, that's okay, but let the knee come all the way across and then reach that left arm up alongside your ear. So again, you're focusing a little bit more on the length between the armpit and the hip. So you're still trying to pull the top of that hip bone down towards the extended heel. Good. Nice, you guys. It's kind of fun that triangle is one of those poses we take for granted because we're generally taught it very early in a yoga practice and it's done very often, but it's rarely explained. We're just told to kind of do it. Come on back to center, please. Hug that knee in towards your chest. Good. Bring the other knee in with it, so squeeze both knees in. Yeah. And then roll yourself forward and back, please, and then roll yourself all the way up to sit. Good. Scoot your butt back just a little bit. Straighten the legs. Right leg stays out in front of you. Bend the left knee. Bring the bottom of the foot into your right thigh. Let the knee go wide, so Janu Shirshasana. Good. Again, balancing your pelvic bones. So make sure you feel equal weight on right and left side of your sit bones. It doesn't matter how high that bent knee is, but find the balance of your pelvis, and then arms up to the sky. Little twist to your left towards that, or right. Somehow a bunch of you are on different legs. So right leg should be forward, left knee is bent. Yeah, there we go. Little stretch to your right, bow over the extended thigh. Nice, you guys. So watch again the connection here of that extended leg. What we like to do is to let that leg do what the hip wants it to do, which for most of us is the toes start to turn out to the side and your inner thigh starts to spin up, right? Because the outer hip is tight. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to send your inner thigh down, like you're pushing your inner thigh towards the sole of the opposite foot. And you're gonna keep those toes straight up and down. Again, this is already working the concept of the alignment of the leg in the hip socket, which is the foundation of how triangle works, right? Is that front leg, the extended leg has to be in the right rotation with the hip. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck. So you practice that in poses like this. So dig that right heel down so that your leg is super active, and then extend your spine more. Good. Reach forward from your low belly, from the top of your sacrum and your low belly, extend forward. Nice, and then come all the way back up, please. Good, keep the right leg extended, take your left knee wider. So you're coming more towards that half straddle. So the left knee goes out wider. Good, so now you're changing the angle on the pelvis, but what that extended leg is doing has not changed. So again, it's gonna wanna fall outward for most of us. You have to keep that inner thigh rooting down, toes straight up. Good, turn towards the right thigh again, belly towards your thigh, one hand on either side, and then walk yourself straight forward. Good. Yeah, watch that the toes don't fall out. Again, it's not so important how far forward you can come. What matters to me for this exercise is that you are keeping the alignment of your foot. You're keeping the alignment of the leg in the hip socket where it is as you fold forward. Nice. Good, and then bring that right hand just to the inside of the right shin. Yep, press the shin into the hand so you still have same rotation on the leg. Turn your rib cage open, please. Take your left arm straight up to the sky. So not over the ear, straight up to the sky. Good, press that inner shin towards your hand. Roll the inner thigh down. Good, toes stay facing straight up as you turn your ribs open. Good, so turtle your back a little bit more, Linda, a little bit more, Jackie, a little bit more, Lauren. Pull back into your low rib cage. That's it. Now open your chest up and bring that top hand forward until there's no more feeling of that stretch at the front of your armpit. Forward toward your belly, forward towards your nose. Good. Now, if you want greater stretch in your chest, you got to open your chest. There you go. Good, Lindsay. And then bring it all the way back up. Take a look at your extended leg. Have your toes fallen out to the side? Yep. So this is what's going to happen in triangle too, right? Is that you're going to fall outward. That hip's going to push out, and it's going to create that feeling of I'm falling towards the baby toe edge of my foot. You got a question, Lindsay? You have to unmute yourself. Good. Switch to the other side, you guys, just while she's asking me the question. Stretch the left leg forward, bend your right knee. Janu Shirshasana facing straight ahead. What's your question?
If our feet are planted on the ground, in theory, in triangle, right?
Yep. Fold forward, you guys, as you find your Janu Shirshasana.
Then what's the equivalent of your toes?
Yeah, falling out. So the equivalent of your toes falling out when your foot is planted is your weight's going to roll towards the baby toe edge of your foot. That's what that is. And your knees maybe is going to start to bow out to the side. The opposite that might happen in order for you to find balance that we do is that we actually swivel our hips out to the side so that we can keep our weight more towards the center of our foot, but now your knee is turned in. But for a lot of people, if you're flexible enough for the toes to be turning out, is that your weight's going to roll towards the baby toe edge of your foot, your shin is going to bow out to the side, and now your leg is your knee is really taking a lot more pressure than it should be doing in triangle. Yeah, so good question. Yeah, and you'll feel it when you're standing on your legs. We'll talk about it. Good. So again, you're watching that rotation. Inner thigh rolls down a lot. Good. Again, this is about that strength of the outer hip. So it's not just its ability to rotate, but its ability to stay stable. One more breath. Extend your spine. So pull long. Pull your chest up and your arms down. Good. Pull your navel in and lift your pelvis forward. Good. And then walk yourself back in, please. Keep the left leg extended right where it is. Pull your right knee wider to the right. So you're coming into that open angle. So why is this harder now? Because now both hips are in rotation, right? Good. And this is more true to what your pelvis is going to feel like when you're in triangle. So the straight ahead, in theory, is a little easier to maintain the rotation of the extended leg. Now you're open, just like you are in triangle. So you got to really pay attention to that outer hip. Good. So turn towards the thigh first, bow forward. So one hand on either side. And again, you're working that energy of the inner thigh down, heel down, toes stay facing straight up. And then can you turn your left rib cage a little bit more, turn your left belly a little bit more. Again, you want there to be a lot of space in that area where the pelvis meets the trunk. Because otherwise, when we get to that side extension and triangle, that part of us is going to, if it's locked, it's going to restrict what we're able to do. Good. And then bring that left hand or left forearm right to the inside of the shin. And already, just from doing that, the desire is to let the shin fall open, to let the toes fall open. So reverse that, pull it in. So you have this feeling of you're pushing your shin into your forearm and your forearm is pushing back into your shin. You want to have that resistance. It's a nice way of practicing triangle when you do it is to have that hand right inside the shin so that you can do this, pressing the shin in while you're in the pose. And then turn your ribs open, please. Right arm up to the sky. Good. And maintain. Now the weight of your shoulders and that restriction in your back is going to start pulling your leg open. Don't let it. Push that shin in, squeeze that shin in, and then ribs draw back and rotate from your trunk. Nice. And you're still leaning over that thigh. So in theory, the idea is that you're still trying to take that left armpit all the way down to your left ankle. Like you're going to lay your side ribs down on your thigh. That's how long you want to get here. Good. And then that right hand that's up in the air, bring it slightly forward like you're pushing heavy air. So your armpit engages, but you bring it forward towards your nose enough that there's no feeling of that stretch at the front of your armpit. And then open your chest more, but don't pull the hand back more. Good. Nice. Roll that shin in, Jackie. There you go. And then slowly release. Nice, you guys. Come all the way back up. Oh, I know. So much work. Bend your knees, please. Roll forward to hands and knees. Take a downward facing dog. And pedal your feet. Yeah. Good. And then steady your dog, nice long spine. Squeeze your feet and your hands towards each other. So you pull your hips up towards the sky just a little bit more. Good. And then step the right foot forward between the hands. Good. Walk your hands inside the front foot. Walk all the way to the center of your mat. Turn your toes, wide-legged stance. Yep, toes facing straight ahead. Nice. So again, you want your legs to be wide because this is how wide legs are in triangle. And you want to have this feeling of squeezing your shins towards each other as you push your inner thighs away. So try that. Bend your knees a little bit. Yep. As your knees bend, push your inner knees wide. So push the inner thighs wide. Good. Maybe even flare your sit bones up and back. There you go. And then maintain that. Start to push your hips up towards the sky. Squeeze your shins towards each other, but keep pushing your inner knees and your inner thighs wide. Scoop your belly. A little more weight towards your left side, Calliope. Lift your left low belly a little more. There you go. Nice, you guys. Good, good, good. Spread your toes, big toes, baby toes, anchored to the floor. Nice. This is also a really good one for working with triangle because it frees up the lower back. It works the energy of the outer thighs as well as the hamstrings and the groins, all that need to be really able to extend for a triangle to work. Good. Hands back to the floor. Heel toe your feet a little closer, please. So they're just under your hips or just a little bit wider than hips width. Heel toe your feet a little closer. There you go. So they should be a little wider, almost what would be the width of your mat if you were facing that direction. Good, so a little wider than your hips. And then bend your knees, drop your thighs back parallel to the floor, and bring your hands to your outer knees. Yep, so you're in like a wide sort of chair pose, but toes facing straight ahead, Lauren. So parallel your feet forward, turn, yep, there you go. And then hands to your outer knees. Good, push your knees wide into your hands. And as you're doing that, press your big toe mounds down into the floor. So you're pushing your knees wide into your hands and you're pushing your big toe mounds down into the floor. Good. Now do the opposite. Take your hands to your inner knees and squeeze your knees in towards your hands. Press into the big toe mounds of your feet and now push your inner thighs way wide back behind you. Good. Nice. And then hands to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Like, I don't know what any of that was about. It's just getting you to work at engaging the outer legs, right? Functionally engaging the outer legs. Good. Walk back towards the top of your mat, please. Or actually, we could just do this. Yeah, just come on down. How do I want you to do this? Walk back towards the top of your mat just so that you're facing that direction for me. Good. And then I want you to come back down to hands and knees. You can step back to dog if you want. Good. Again, choreography is not important for this class context. Good. Not important. And bring your hands up to your hips. So we're coming into gate pose. So now some of you are like, oh, I need to face the other way to do that anyway. So come up into a high kneeling position, hands at your hips. Good, and then you're gonna extend your right leg out wide to the right. Yep, and I want you to come up on the heel. So heel down, toes up towards the ceiling. Good, and notice what that did, right? So if you take your hands to the front of your pelvic bones, right, and you can see that they're sort of facing straight ahead. When you turn that heel up, what probably happened is your pelvis went like this. Yes? So try your best to draw that heel wide, but pull that right hip back so that your pelvic bones are facing straight ahead again, but your heel is still down and your toes are still rotating up. So that might mean that you have to move your foot forward a little bit. Again, this is you getting used to what the actual limitations of your pelvis are and not being mad about it. Good. Dig that heel down, drag it in so your heel and your knee are squeezing towards each other. Arms extend wide. Good, so this is like simulating triangle. This is like triangle just close to the floor. So slide that right hand down the right leg, take your left arm straight up to the sky, not over the ear, straight up. Good. And again, you're looking for that feeling of extension. So that right leg already is getting a little bit tired of being engaged. Pop your knee up just a little bit so that your knee is not sagging, it's not hyperextending. So the bottom of your knee, bend it just a tiny bit. Good. And now, drag that heel across the floor. It feels like you're dragging it, so you're pulling the thigh up, extend a little bit more. Go a little bit lower. Good. Yeah. I know the pelvis in this pose is a lot like, little teapot. Don't let it tip all the way out. Good. And then bring it all the way back up, please. Nice. Now turn those right toes forward so the foot comes flat, other variation of the same pose. So now the leg is acting a lot more like the back leg does in triangle pose, right? It's the same position. So you have to still have that squeeze. And now the inner knee is still going to want to fall towards the floor. Lift it up. So just from here, can you feel that pull up from your inner knee, from your inner thigh, pushing up towards the ceiling? Baby toe roots down to the floor. Stretch the arms wide again. Good. And then again, notice if that right hip is hiked up. Try to really lift through the left side of your pelvis. So don't try to push the right hip down. Lift your left side pelvis up. There you go. Now find that reaching down through the leg and extending. That's the other thing that ends up happening, right? So take that left arm to the sky as you come forward or as you come across the leg. The other thing that starts to happen is that when, our pelvis goes out of alignment, we automatically try and punch down the part that has lifted instead of seeing where we can maybe balance it by lifting through the other side that's probably sagging, right? So the lift on that standing leg in this position gives you more freedom. Lifting is always going to give you more freedom. Come all the way back up. Good. Try the other side. Right knee comes underneath the right hip. Extend the left leg out. Good. Come up on the heel first so your toes turn up towards the ceiling. And again, watching that as you do that your pelvis doesn't do that wild twist backwards and it doesn't do a super hike up to the side. Lift through that right side even higher. Dig your left heel down and drag it in. So there should feel like there's no pressure at the back of your knee because that dragging back of the heel is going to feel like you're actually trying to bend your knee while you're straightening your leg at the same time. Yeah? Left arm comes down the left leg, right arm goes straight up to the sky. And again, this is huge because if your knee is collapsing in this position, guess what it's going to do in triangle pose? It's going to collapse, right? And so this is where knees that don't like yoga or that start to have problems because of yoga, this is where you have to be aware that if you are really drawing up and in, then even that big extension through the knee is not going to be a problem, right? The knee is supported. Good. One more breath, go a little deeper, please, squeezing the legs towards each other. Nice. And then come all the way back up. Turn the toes forward so the foot comes flat or it's angled forward, flat. Good. And again, that inner knee has to push wide. Yeah, the inner thigh has to push up. And the feet, the foot and the knee squeeze towards each other, the bent knee. There you go. And then you're lifting that right side hip up higher to allow the left one to soften so they stay level. Good. Arms wide. Bring the left hand down the left thigh, right arm back up to the sky. Your pelvis looks really good, Kristen. I know you keep checking it, but it's good. Good. Linda, lift your right side hip a little higher. Lift through that right side. There you go. Exactly. Nice. Looking good, Lauren. Looking good, Susan. You're all looking good. Nice, Sandy. Good. Don't let those knees fall in. The longer you're in the pose, the more the desire is there to let the knee collapse. Good. And then slowly bring it all the way back up. Nice job. Come back to hands and knees. Good. Do a little hip circling. Maybe drop back to child's pose if that feels good. Just giving you a little break. Nice. All right, and then come back to stillness, please. Here is where if you have a wall available, it's a great idea to use, or even your furniture is a great idea to use. So we're going to come into Parsvottanasana, and if I had you in the studio, I would absolutely have you doing it facing a wall, because the point is I'm working with it as a way of extending through the trunk. So if you don't have a wall, you don't have furniture, I want you to have 2 blocks, if you have them, up on their highest setting so that you can have your torso as level with the floor as possible. So again, if you're using a wall, you can turn to face the wall. And you're going to come into an L shape with your hands pressing into the wall and your legs straight underneath your hips. Good. So you have options here. And you're stepping your right foot forward in front of you, left leg back, Parsvottanasana. So just far enough apart so that your legs can be straight, toes facing forward. Yeah, so Linda, you're going to face the wall. And then you're going to walk your feet back until you're in an L shape, push your hands into the wall and step your right foot forward. So you're still in Parsvottanasana, but I still want your torso parallel to the floor. So if you need to move your feet back, move them back. Good. And again, if you don't have a wall, blocks underneath your hands, great idea. Lauren, you could totally use a chair if you wanted to. just so you have something to rest your hands on so that you can really work the extension of your spine. Good. Scoop your belly, you guys. Pull your inner thighs back. So if you have the wall, you're pushing your hands into the wall. If you have your blocks, you're pushing your hands into your blocks. So maybe move your blocks backwards so that your hands are straight underneath your shoulders. So Kristen, move your blocks back. Calliope, move your blocks back. And then push into the blocks so that you feel a lift of your chest. Push into your blocks and lift your chest. Yep, push into your blocks and lift your chest. Good. Now pull your armpits down as your collarbones go forward. That's it. Armpits down towards your hips as your collarbones go forward. Extend and pull your butt back. Pull your inner thighs back. Good. And now big toe mound of your front foot. Lift that shin forward so your knee again is not locked. Nice. Beautiful, you guys. And then switch sides, please. Take the other leg forward. Good. And when you're holding these positions, especially for this sort of context, is don't let up, right? Don't get into the pose and think that, okay, I just have to engage here and then I can relax. The purpose of doing the pose this way is so that you don't relax. The purpose is so that you stay in that conscious, I am extending. As long as I'm in this position, I am reaching through every length of my body that I have, right? So you're pushing into your blocks if you're using blocks, you're pushing into the wall if you're using the wall or furniture. And then again, you're lifting your low rib cage, you're lifting your low belly, send your inner thighs back, pull your shins, your calves slightly forward. That's it. As you're pushing into your hands, lift your chest forward, collarbones forward, and drag your armpits down towards your hips. Long throat, and don't let up. Push into everything. Keep extending. Good. Triangle pose is not a relaxing posture, right? It should feel almost like it's weightless because every part of the body is actually bearing the weight. That makes sense, right? So when the arms are lifted, there's no weight there on the shoulders. The legs are holding you, but they're not holding you with heaviness. They're holding you with energy. So there's an electricity, there's a lightness. Good. So you want to really engage so that you feel that everything is electrified. Good. And then go ahead and release, please. Nice job. Step the feet forward. Take your feet a little wider. Drop down towards a squat pose, please. So turn your toes out. Good. And again, squeezing the knees in just a little bit, pushing the elbows wide so that you have a sense of, I want you to contract your outer hips. So see if you can feel that you're actually squeezing your outer hips towards each other. It might feel like you're actually squeezing your butt muscles to get access to that. But I want you to squeeze. Even if you're sitting on the block, you can still do that. I want you to feel that squeeze of the outer hips. So pull those knees together strong. Good. And pull those outer hips towards each other. Awesome. And then fingers to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Nice, nice, nice. All right. So keep your right leg forward, step your left leg back behind you. Nice long stance. So if you need to adjust your feet, go ahead. And you're dropping your left heel and coming into warrior two. So the right foot is forward, left leg back, warrior two. Good. All right, take your hands to your hips. Good, so this is gonna be really fun to try to explain over a screen. So I want you to look down first and foremost. I want you to look down at your front knee and look that it is pointing at the second or third toe of your front foot. So make sure that is happening. And then I want you to feel that your right butt cheek is drawing back and in towards the midline of your mat. So it's almost like there's a straight line from your knee to your hip. So your knee is towards your second toe and your hip is straight in line with that knee. Good. Now, are your hip points, right and left side, level with each other? You're like, I have no idea. Try to find that levelness. So for most of us, that means the front hip has to lift higher. Pull that hip point up away from your thigh and then squeeze your feet towards each other. Good. And then push your left hip back into your left hand without letting that right hip drop. Good. Nice, nice, nice. And now start to straighten, keep all of that. Start to straighten that front leg without letting your knee waver in its alignment. So push into the ball of the foot, start to straighten the leg, pull that right thigh bone up into the hip socket, pull that hip higher, hip point higher. and then squeeze your feet towards each other. So it's actually impossible for your knee to lock because you're pulling the thigh up, not trying to push the leg to straight. You're just pulling the thigh longer and you're pushing through your foot. Nice. And then you're doing the same thing with the back leg. Inner thigh pushes wide, and then get really long through your heel and pull up through the sides of your hips, arms to the sky, straight up to the sky. Good. And then play with, right? What happens here? You've got this great alignment here. What happens if you start to draw the top of your left hip wider to the left? Just a little bit. Don't let your front knee waver, but turn your left hip wider to the left. Open your pelvis to the side a little more. See what happens. Yeah, you've got to keep relifting that right hip point. And at some point, you're going to feel that there's a restriction, that it actually feels like bones are hitting each other, right? Again, this is telling you the actual rotation, the actual flexibility of that hip joint. Good. And then stay just this lifted, bend your knee, come back to warrior two without letting your ribs come forward. So your hips are going almost straight down. They're not sliding forward. They're going straight down between that space between the feet. Good. And then straighten the leg again, keeping the knee in that orientation. Reach up a little taller, a little longer. Good. And then bend the knee again towards warrior two. Keep the arms up. Just let the pelvis drop. Good. And then come all the way back up again, pulling up through the hip points. Good. And as that knee bends, last time, again, let the pelvis go straight down. Don't let the ribs slide forward towards that front thigh. Awesome. Take your arms out wide and into that warrior two. Good. Nice. Turn your palms to face the same direction as your nose. So thumbs up towards the ceiling. Pull your rib cage in. Yup, rib cage in, Jackie. Good. And then I want you to just extend forward with that right hand, like you're going to reach to shake someone's hand. Extend. And as you're extending, that right hip point is going to want to drop in space, isn't it? Keep lifting it up and extend. And keep lifting it up and extend. And keep lifting it up and extend. Pull back on that front heel so it's not your front thigh doing all the work. Back thigh awake. Good. And then come all the way back up, please. Straighten the right leg. Nice. Turn the toes forward so that you're paralleling your feet. Forward fold. I know, almost a triangle. But if I let you do triangle now, we'll have nothing else to do for the rest of the class. I'm just kidding. We're almost there. But I want you to have that awareness, right? That warrior two is a position that really sets your pelvis, sets your legs for triangle. So if you're not working the strength of your outer hips in warrior two, then it's not going to be there when you transition to triangle, because we do that so habitually, go from warrior two to triangle. Good. Switch your feet, please. So you can actually just turn towards the other side of your mat if you want, or you can walk back towards the top of your mat and switch your feet. So I want your left leg forward. Again, I'm giving up on choreography for this class format. Left leg forward, right leg back, warrior two. Good. And so same thing, you're looking at the alignment of the knee, it's pointing towards second or third toe. So that means the inner knee is actually already pushing a little bit wide, which means that you also have to pull that left butt cheek slightly back and in towards the midline, which for most of us is going to turn your pelvis slightly forward towards that front leg. You might say, but triangle is supposed to have my pelvis all the way out to the side. Maybe, if your pelvis allows that, right? But if this is where your hip rotation actually works, then this is where you stay. So that back hip is going to most likely spin slightly in. Your inner thigh is going to rotate slightly in. It's perfect. Good. So you're pushing the feet towards, you're squeezing the feet towards each other, but the inner thighs are lengthening wide. Take your arms up towards the sky. Lift that left hip point higher. So actually hands back to your hips, because I forgot this and I do want you to feel it. So lift that left hip point, the front hip point higher up off of your thigh. Try and balance your hip points so that they're in the same line. And then once you've got them where they feel like they're pretty much level, push your right hip back into your hand. So the back hip pushes backwards as the front hip pulls up. Good. And then just don't lean back, Calliope. So keep your ribs nice and neutral. There you go. And now you guys stretch your arms straight up to the sky. Good. Keep that orientation of your pelvis. Start to straighten your left knee without letting it waver. So again, big toe mound roots down, because the tightness of the hips are going to pull towards the baby toe edge of your foot. Pull that thigh up, up, up. Pull the hip point up, 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 up. Extension. Good. And then stay that lifted. Bend the knee again like you're coming into warrior two, but your ribs stay super lifted. It's just the thighs that are going wide away from each other. They're not even going forward, just straight down the pelvis goes. Good. And then pull up from your trunk, from your core, pull up through your spine to take that leg to straight. Lift the hip point up, 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 squeeze your feet. Good. And then stay that lifted, bend the knee again, back towards warrior two. Pelvis goes straight down. So don't lean forward into that front knee. Stay balanced, front leg and back leg, same amount of pressure, same amount of weight. Good. Straighten the legs one more time. Don't let that knee waver. It's still pointing at second or third toe. Good. And then one more time, warrior two, bring it forward. Good. And then arms out wide. Nice. Palms face forward, please. Good. And then like you're pushing that heavy air, push forward. And then draw the armpits back and down. So the armpits squeeze back and your chest lifts. And now extend forward like you're going to reach to shake a hand with that left hand. Reach forward. Keep that left hip point up. Don't tip it. Good. Reach forward, reach forward. Keep lifting your left hip point up like you're trying to go all the way parallel to the floor without tipping your pelvis. Practice this. Good. Don't let that knee fall in. Push it wide. Good. You got to contract those outer hips. Squeeze the hips towards each other. Awesome. And then come all the way back up, please. Turn the toes forward, forward fold. I know, triangle, not complicated, right? Not at all. It's extension in all directions. That's the essence of triangles. It's extension in all directions. It's extension through your legs, extension through your trunk, extension through your arms. So that concept of between two panes of glass, that's very classically said in Iyengar yoga. Is the idea is that you want there to be this open rotation in the pelvis that allows your ribs and your hips to stay in the same plane with your legs. Your trunk stays in the same plane with your legs as you do triangle. Not always possible though. Take your hands to your hips, come all the way up to stand. So it's not wrong if that's not happening. All right, right leg forward again. You are gonna come into full triangle this time. Good, so right leg forward, toes facing straight ahead. Good, left toes parallel the back of your mat. And for some of us, again, if the pelvis is a little bit tight, then you can turn the back toes in a tiny, tiny bit. Yeah, because that little bit of forward or internal rotation on your hip is actually going to free up space. It's going to free up rotation on your leg. So it's more important that the inner thigh of the back leg is rolling in and up than it is that your hip is pulled wide. What do you got, Lauren?
So in triangle, usually in the regular flow of class, are your feet perpendicular or is that back foot on that 45-degree angle?
In theory, it's perpendicular. It's parallel to the back of your mat, perpendicular to the front foot. Again, if the pelvis doesn't easily allow that, turning the back foot in just a little bit. You don't want it to be necessarily that full 45 degrees. It's a little too far forward, but a tiny, tiny bit helps, again, free up rotation on the back thigh. But in theory, the classical is that they're perpendicular to each other. Yeah. So find where your legs are again. Come into warrior two. Again, set your pelvis. Good. Absolutely have a block with you. Great thing. In the front, inside of the front foot, if you're using it. Good. So find your warrior two first. And imagine that, again, this is your setup for triangle. This is the bent knee version of triangle. So that right hip point is lifted. You're going wide through the inner thighs. You're squeezing through your feet. Your arms are reaching, but you are hugging your lower armpits in. So those back muscles are super awake. Good. And then start to straighten the front thigh, please, lifting that right hip up, 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 up. Send your inner thighs wide away from each other. Pull up through your spine and then extend forward like you're going to reach for that handshake. Keep that right hip up. Don't let it automatically tip. It's going to tip a tiny bit as you reach forward. You're going to keep widening your inner thighs. It's going to tip a little bit, but you're going to resist that. Keep reaching, keep reaching, keep reaching. Good. Turn your left rib cage open to the sky before you come down. Turn your left rib cage open to the sky. That's it. Good. And then let that right hand touch down wherever it naturally does. Good. So it might be on the shin. It might be on a block. If it's in the direction or the place of your shin, push that hand or that forearm against the inside of your shin and push your shin into the inside of your hand and pull up. Pull your hips towards the sky. Pull your ribs towards the sky. Good. Rotate. Pull your low rib cage in towards the back body again, like you're trying to bring your hips and your ribs into the same plane. Awesome. Extend, extend, extend. Reach through your fingertips, draw in through your armpits. Extend out through your legs, pull up through your low belly. Good. And then come all the way back up, just as strong. Good. So shin forward, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, all the way back up to stand. Good. If your knee had to do a funny little jerk to get out of a locked position, notice that. Means that you went a little too far in that extension of your leg. Good. Switch sides, please. Nothing fancy. Just step the left foot forward, right leg back. Again, no choreography. We're doing work here. I'll choreograph something for you later. Good. So start with warrior 2, please. Again, front toes facing forward, back toes parallel to the back of your mat. Or again, if the pelvis is tight, slightly turned in, just so that the front of your thigh can soften in and back, right? The inner thigh can roll in and back. So you're not pushing forward through the thigh at all. It's actually pushing back. Good. And then that front knee is in line with the second or third toe. Balance your pelvis. Left hip point's got to lift up, up, up. Good. And then arms can go wide, wide, wide. Good. And again, you're extending out through the fingertips, but pulling your lower armpits in and pushing the hands slightly forward so that you have that sense of your controlling heavy air. And the front of your arms, the front of your arm joint is not stretched open. It's actually feeling really secure. Start to straighten that left leg, please. So you're pulling your spine long, long, long. It's from your spine that you're pulling up, and you're pressing into your feet and pulling your left thigh up, pulling your left hip point up, 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 up. And then start to reach forward like you're reaching for that handshake again. Resist the desire to drop that left hip and push your right butt cheek out. Resist that desire, and then keep extending. Again, it's going to go a little bit because you can't come forward unless there's a little bit of a tip there, but you want it to be as minimal as you can get away with. And then turn your right rib cage up towards the sky. And then remember, you're reaching with your spine, not with your chin. So relax your chin towards your chest. There you go, Calliope. Nice. And then let that left hand come to touch down wherever it's going to rest. Right arm comes straight up. So you're creating this straight neutral line through your arms. The wrists are connected to each other. Try to put them in line with each other. So that top hand can't go flying back because your other hand is not flying back, right? Open your chest more. Press the shin into the hand. Press your hand back into the shin. Pull up. Everything pulls up and push through those feet. Nice. You want to be so electrified here that it's like you could hold forever because everything is holding its own weight. So it's almost like you're weightless. Good. And then bring it all the way back up. So shin forward first so that if that knee is locked, it comes out. And then from your navel, from your trunk, pull all the way up, 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 lengthening, 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 lengthening. Awesome. Good. If you had to bend the knee to come out of that, no problem, but you work that energy of coming out of the pose with the legs straight so that again, you're getting that pulling from the trunk area, the strength of your outer hips and your trunk. Good. And then go ahead and cartwheel the hands down to the floor, bend the front knee, step back, downward facing dog. Really good, you guys. Good. And then slide forward, please, or drop the knees to the floor. You don't even have to slide forward. Just drop your knees to the floor. Take a child's pose. Good. It's kind of nice, though, to practice triangle with a block so that you can do the same thing that we did in Parsvottanasana, which is to push your hand into the block and feel the real extension through your chest. You can actually work the rotation of the trunk, right? Doing it that way. If you're worried about where that hand is going to push into or where it's going to rest, you're going to lose some of that power, right? So using the block is really, really helpful on that front edge of the foot, the inner edge of the foot. Walk yourself back up, please. Good. Come onto your backs. Nice. Good, good, good. Yeah, bend the knees, please. Bring them in towards your chest, squeeze. And then cross your right thigh over top of your left. Separate the feet. So knees are stacked, separate the feet, reach for your ankles or your shins. And then draw those knees, scoop your belly, draw your knees in towards your chest as much as you can. As your knees come in, I know it's going to lift your tail up. So try and draw that low belly in and push your sacrum down to the floor. So it's, again, every time you're on your back, if you're thinking about making your triangle pose more in the hips and the pelvis being in the pelvis and the ribs being in the same plane, is practice it on your back, keeping the ribs anchored, keeping the low back anchored equally. Good. And then release the feet, squeeze your shins against each other. So stay with the same leg on top. Just come into eagle leg. So you're pressing the shins against each other as well. Don't double wrap the feet, even if you can, just don't. Just thigh on top and squeezing the shins. And then arms out wide. Yeah. Good, deep breath in. And as you exhale, no hands, keep your ribs anchored to the floor. Draw your knees in towards your chest. Scoop your belly, draw the knees in. Keep pressing the shins against each other. Again, this is to help sort of strengthen and also stretch outer hips. And then take your legs slightly forward on the inhale. Find more of your lower back. Don't let your ribs pop up. And then exhale again, no hands, draw the knees in towards your chest. Squeeze. Good, and then bring the legs slightly forward on the inhale. Again, finding more of your lower back, pressing it down. And then one more time, exhale, bring the knees in towards the chest, squeeze. Awesome. And then go ahead and release that, scoot your hips over to, so keep the legs wrapped, just scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left. Good, and if coming into a twist with your legs wrapped does not feel good on the knees or the hips or any other part, unwind the legs. Good, Jackie, just pull your knees a little higher up towards your chest. There you go. Beautiful, you guys. Again, every way that you work extension is going to help triangle. Hamstrings and groin, trunk, twisting, it's all going to help. But if we're not aware of those muscles that stabilize us, the outer hips specifically, if we don't have an awareness there, then triangle pose can easily go into overextension, hyperextension. Come on back to center, unwind your legs. Good. And then take the other leg on top, so knees back in towards your chest, cross your left thigh over top of your right, separate your feet, reach for your ankles or your shins. Good. Again, drawing the knees in towards the chest and then pressing down through the lower back. So feet wide first, Callie. Okay, there you go. Good. And again, if the outer hips, outer thighs are a tight place, this position is a good one for working with stretching that area, releasing that area. Doing it on your back is the most accessible, though of course you could do it sitting up as well. So anything you can do to strengthen and have greater awareness of your outer hips, the rotation of your outer hips is super good. So that can be this pose, it can be eagle, it can be pigeon. Can be squats. Good, release the feet, please press the shins against each other. So you're just taking the legs into eagle, still with the shins parallel to the floor, stretch your arms out wide so that you have a real sense of, again, that triangle wingspan, right? So press the backs of the hands into the floor so that you have a real sense of you're actually reaching through your arms. And what does it take to keep your ribs down to the floor with your arms extended? Good, now no hands, draw the knees in towards your chest on the exhale, squeeze in. Good, and then extend the legs forward just a little bit more so you find more of the lower back, a little challenge for your abdominals, keep your ribs down, and then exhale, bring the knees in towards your chest, keep squeezing your shins against each other. Don't get lazy with your legs, especially if you're comfortable in this position. Squeeze your shins so that your outer hips stay awake. Good, extend the legs forward again. A little cramp there, I know. And then exhale, bring it back in. So keep the legs awake, but don't clench. That's the trick. Good. Nice, you guys. And then go ahead and bring it back to neutral, please. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your legs to the left. Spinal twist with the legs wrapped if that's comfortable. So I think I said that wrong. Take your legs to the left and drop your knees to the right. Yeah. So you're twisting the opposite way that you just did. Yeah, if doing that little eagle extension and pulling in caused cramping, right? Little indication that the hip flexors, the outer hips are a little bit weak. So they got grippy, which is okay. That's what it tells you. And that's what our asana practice is supposed to do. It tells us where our body is looking for more support and where it's looking for more openness. So we just learn, right? Attitude of triangle is that every part of the body has to bear its own weight. An extension doesn't mean that I'm dropping into my joints. It means that I'm constantly electrified. I'm constantly awake and aware. Every part is doing its part. So it makes triangle a very sound architectural structure. Bears weight very well. Unwind the legs, come back to center, please. Good. Hug the knees in. Do a little happy baby if you would like, or if you feel that you're done, maybe even a supine Baddha Konasana if that feels good to you. So bottoms of the feet together, knees wide if that feels good. It's your final pose. And then when you are complete with that, extend the legs out in front of you, arms alongside you, rest in Shavasana. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. The body begin to stretch and move in whatever ways serve it well. And as you're ready, draw your knees in towards your chest and roll to your right side. And take a moment before you begin to push the floor away, come back to an upright seated position. Bringing the hands together in front of the heart center, or palm to palm, or whatever mudra has been serving you. think the things I hope that you remember about triangle is that it is about extension, but extension only works if your foundation is steady and aware. And that every part has to do its part in order for there to be a sense of completeness and fullness and wholeness in who you are. So that's what you're practicing in triangle, is how long can I extend because the foundation of me is so steady. So if you have learned nothing else, maybe it's just that the rotation of your legs has to do with your outer hips. That's the strength of it, not just the restriction. And that the heart can keep turning, the ribs can keep turning, the pelvis can stay steady. So there's always a place that is steady. It's a practice of yoga, and it is true in every posture, but especially triangle. If you want to extend longer, you have to steady your foundation. So just breathe into that. Practice the attitude of the pose. Every part has to do its part, and I steady my foundation. That's how I get bigger. That's how I expand. And close with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste, everybody. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was fun for you. Thanks for coming on at the last minute, Alex, to say hello. Let me know if you learned something. You have to unmute yourself. I can't do it for you. We're good? We've all discovered the secrets of triangle? Awesome.
Yeah, now I'm afraid to teach it, frankly.
No, don't be afraid to teach it. Teach it the way that you know, and teach it the way that you're still learning it. But teach it, because you'll learn it better by teaching it.
Okay.
The poses that scare you, teach them. Yeah, the ones that you don't understand, teach them. Absolutely. Don't be scared. Like I said, triangle, we learn it early and we do it often, and it's almost never explained. And I haven't heard anyone die from triangle. So teach it imperfectly, and it will perfect your own understanding. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good.
Good.
Master classes on YouTube?
Yeah, I am putting them up. So the tree pose one is already up on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, I don't know what's wrong with